Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give this just another couple of seconds. Looks like people are still filtering in on the attendee list. Hey, Samantha. All right, I've got 12:02, so let's go ahead and get this going.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel O'Neill. I'm a partner at Thompson Co. I help run the Houston Young Lawyers Foundation CLE committee. We are excited about this presentation here today. We are really fortunate to have an incredible panel with us here today, a real group of all-stars. So we want to thank you all for joining us here today. This is an important program, not just for people in the litigation practice, although as a litigator, I think we're going to hear, a lot kind of over on that side, but this also impacts on the transactional side dealing with clients, whether they are, the more traditional kind of clients or even pro bono clients. We're going to hear a lot about that from Angela. So our incredible panel that we have here today, Angela Oakes is a 100% family law litigator, seasoned and veteran trial lawyer. Uh, Angela, I cannot say, I could spend the entire hour saying compliments about Angela. We've worked together in the past. She is an amazing person, excellent lawyer, somebody that I look up to. She's amazing both in and out of the courtroom. She does a ton of pro bono stuff. I could spend the rest of the hour just saying compliments about her. So I think we will let her speak for herself and her own experience, and I hope you all enjoy hearing from her. And then the other portion of our panel is Sarah Cuddy, who works with Baird Private Wealth Management. She has two significant credentials that she's going to give you all a little bit of background about and talk about how this ties into what our topic is here today on how to handle clients in crisis. So she has not only a CFP, which that's Certified Financial Planner, she also has the even rarer and very impressive CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. So Sarah works with people who are going through the end of a marriage, either through kind of a traditional divorce, the collaborative divorce process, or the other way that marriages are going to end through death of one of the spouses. So from the family law litigation and very experienced trial lawyer perspective, high conflict in the family law court scenario from Angela's perspective, from the ends of marriages and dealing with deaths of spouses. Sarah has another kind of perspective on how you deal with clients dealing with the worst day of their life, more or less. So just a quick plug for the next HYLF CLE that we have. It is May 20th at noon. That is going to be Scott Marcus at Lexitas, who's presenting on methods of capturing the record. So I'm going to turn it over to Angela and Sarah to present on this. Thank you all so much for agreeing to generously volunteer your time to talk about this very important topic. Thank you, and please take it away.
Yep, happy to do it. I'm just going to share the slide deck with you guys so that you'll have it. And Daniel, are you able to see that on your screen?
Yes, looks great on my screen. Thank you.
Fabulous. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. I just got to get all my little windows in the right spot. I want to kind of just set a little bit of a frame, right? So most people who are engaging with an attorney are experiencing a crisis of some kind, or they're experiencing at the very least a really high stress transaction if you're doing transaction work. So that could be a divorce, criminal charges, a tax controversy, a contract dispute, and your job is to be their legal advocate. But ignoring the emotional piece of your client comes with some risks. And so what we want to do is highlight kind of what's happening with your clients when they're experiencing these times, give you some tools on how to manage that, and give you some strategies that you can use, and then also explain why it's even worth your time to do those things. Daniel already did a great job of introducing us. My name is Sarah Cuddy. I am a financial advisor at Baird. As a certified divorce financial analyst, I obviously deal with people going through divorce. So it has made my practice immeasurably better and more efficient, learning how to deal with clients and the emotional piece of things. And of course, I'm joined by Angela Oakes. Angela, you had such a great introduction, but is there anything
I
you wanted to add
did.
about your background as well?
No, just I've been doing this for 18 years. I've known Daniel forever. And Daniel, thank you for that lovely opening. That was really, really kind. Teared me up a little bit. And Sarah, just delighted to be back here presenting with you again. And Sarah and her CDFA have been an important part of my practice and what I get to offer clients in referring her to Sarah. So I hope all of you take down her information before we're done today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Angela. So let's get into the learning objectives. What are we actually here to do? So first, we want to build a little bit of emotional intelligence. And then getting down into a more nitty-gritty, we want to name and describe 4 strategies for managing clients in crisis. And then we're going to name and describe 2 primary tactics. And these are tactics that you can start using today, right now. It's not magic and it's not difficult. And then we're going to help you articulate why paying attention to the emotional piece of things is not just good for the clients, but it's actually quite good for you. So that's what we hope to achieve today. And the first thing I want to do is I want to look at kind of the toolkit we have. Whoop, too fast. There we go. So toolkit, there's mindset, strategies, and tactics, right? And we want to start with mindset. And Angela, I would love for you to start off the talk about how to approach clients in crisis, what sort of mindset we want to have.
Daniel said it earlier that this is one of the most stressful times that a client, and well, Sarah also echoed that. This is one of the most stressful times for your client who is coming in to meet with the lawyer, whether no matter what type of attorney you are, they're not super happy to be there and they're scared because they don't know what's coming next. So what you can do is provide them with some compassion and some answers, right? You've got answers that they need, and also accept the reality of their emotions. Give them some feedback that it's okay to be frightened. It's okay to be concerned about those next steps. When Sarah and I were pulling this together, we just did a quick, there are 10 most stressful things that happen in life. And I thought the divorce was on the list, but I didn't realize it was number 2. It's number 2 on the list. So in my practice, I practice primarily family law. When I get a client coming to me for divorce, I know this is one of the worst days of their entire life. And it actually probably 99% of the time devolves into tears. That first meeting, there will be tears. And I just let them know it's okay. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be concerned. It's okay to cry about it right now because we're going to get you through this. I'm here now. Let's come up with a plan to get you from where you are now, which is very concerned, to where we're going to be, which is finally divorced. Understanding decision fatigue. In my practice, decision fatigue comes in a couple of ways. One, mediation, which is required in all family law cases, probably twice if you're going all the way to trial. But 2, it can come in when you've been in the process for a year or better, and your client is just absolutely exhausted. What I would caution you to do, well, one, understand decision fatigue and that it's real. And nobody should be making decisions after mediating for 12 hours. That's just not a good idea. Nobody's decisions, including probably your own, are going to be great after 12 hours in the mediation chair. It's okay to say, we are at a point where we can't think anymore, and we need to put this mediation in recess and come back another day. I can't tell you the number of times that I have done that, even at hour 4 because of a mediation, because each client deals with the stress of the mediation and the ability to make decisions in a different way. So some clients are going to be whipping out decisions left and right, and you've got no problem getting them through hour 6. And other clients by hour 2, they've just had enough. They cannot come to that next decision on their own. And if you push them to that next decision, that could be regrettable. So it's okay to say, we've had enough. We've reached enough decisions for today. Let's put this on hold. Let's reschedule. Happens all the time. Try and remember that, and when the client's like, no, I need this done. We have to stay. We have to get this done. Remind them that a mediated settlement agreement is permanent and final. There are very few ways to get out of a mediated settlement in Texas. And let your client know that it's okay to come back.
So we have clients that are really stressed out because they're experiencing one of the top 10 stressors in life. And we know they're tired because they're making dozens of decisions in the course of this case. So how do we help them? So let's talk a little bit about strategy. And there are four basic strategies, some of which you may already be using. But the first one is expectations management. And I tell this to people all the time. There is nothing more corrosive than disappointment. So managing expectations on the front end is really key. Identifying anxieties. What is upsetting your client? What is actually causing them to feel the most discomfort? Building a team. You are a very talented attorney. You know the law, but there are needs that your client has that you can't fulfill. And that's why being willing to build a team around them can really do a lot of good for you and for your client. And then finally, keeping an orientation toward goals. And we're going to get into exactly what that means. Now, I will tell you, expectations management is where I see a lot of attorneys drop the ball in my practice. Folks will come into me and say, I don't even know what we're supposed to be doing because they didn't get the tutorial. So, Angela, can you talk to us a little bit about effectively setting expectations for our clients?
One of the things that I do in my practice is I'm very clear with the client from the initial meeting what we can and cannot accomplish. And I start that conversation with, what's the most important thing to you? Whether it's children or keeping the house or keeping more of the community estate than the other spouse. So we identify right away what is the most important element, but then making sure they have an idea of how long it's all going to take. And it always takes longer than a client thinks it's going to. That's just our legal world right now. I also try and let them know what's going to happen next. When I close out an email to a client, I try and always include, this is our next step. And maybe that next step is 2 months down the road, but this is our next step. If you don't hear from me, reach out. If you need something between now and then, reach out. Just try and constantly let them know, I'm thinking about their case. I'm here. This is what's next. You haven't gotten lost. Because I agree with you, Sarah. The cases that I have to pick up from other lawyers, it is because those lawyers did not tell them what was happening and they got frustrated.
Absolutely. And the graphic that you see there is actually a map of the divorce process that I hand to clients because there's a lot of steps there. There's a lot of different ways this can go. And I'm sure every other legal process has some sort of similar, if you mapped it out kind of thing. And giving this to a client and helping them know where they are in the process can go a long way toward managing some anxieties. But Angela, talk to us a little bit about identifying and addressing anxieties.
So I think one of the primary things that I focus on in that initial meeting is what are they most concerned about? Because if they come to me with a fear, I want to try and get that fear knocked out of the way, right? They're not sleeping because they have this fear. What can I do for them in the immediate present to help them sleep that night? So the first thing I do is, what is it that is concerning to you? And I ask them, what do you want? And then I say, well, in your perfect world, what would that look like? So I usually get from them very quickly, what I want is for the children to live with me. What I want is for dad to have supervised visitation. What I want is to keep the house. That is the most important thing on my plate. I had a client, oh, not even that long ago, who her primary fear was that she would get nothing in the divorce. And she felt that way because her spouse had said to her for years, if you divorce me, you'll get nothing. And I was able to tell her within 30 seconds, well, that's not how divorce works in Texas. You're going to get half of the community property. Knock that out. That stressor is now off her table. We can focus on other stressors.
Absolutely. Finding those stressors and nipping them in the bud is really key. But sometimes you're going to find a stressor that you can't necessarily address, and that's where we get
Yeah.
into building a team. You cannot fix every problem that your client has, nor should you try. So you've got to make it clear that there are just going to be some things that you can't address. But when something that you can't address comes up, that's when you need to delegate. So as a young attorney, it's going to serve you to build a network of other professionals that you know, like, and trust that can help you, right? So if you're a family law attorney, knowing someone who does what I do is a wise thing to have, even if it's just to have a quick free consultation, right? Um, you're going to want to have a CPA that you trust. You're going to want to have an attorney mentor, someone to mentor you as a young attorney. You're going to want to have a network of other professionals. Um, so develop those relationships so that when you have a client who has a problem you can't solve, you already have a solution for them. When you are the person generating solutions for someone, you become immeasurably more valuable to them. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about what that means for your practice. But types of people you may want to get to know, it's helpful to know a therapist. It's helpful to know a CDFA if you're doing that kind of work. It's helpful to know a financial planner or a financial advisor. It's really helpful to know a CPA or a tax advisor. Again, if you're doing divorce work, a quadro specialist is a good idea. And then kind of being plugged into some support networks can also help quite a lot.
Sarah,
Now,
if I can jump in real quick on the support network.
yeah.
This past year, I was contacted by a doctoral candidate by the name of Monica Borschel, Borschel. And I'm telling you that because you may want to read up on her paperwork, or I'm sorry, her thesis once she has it published. She contacted me and asked me to be a participant in her study for her thesis project, which was how different types of client interaction affect burnout and well-being in family attorneys. So over the course of the year, I participated in a few questionnaires, I answered a few emails, I had a couple phone calls with Monica. And I asked her if I could share her findings with you all today because I found them very interesting. First of all, she said one of her findings was, which you're all going to know this, but family law is uniquely demanding. You're not just managing cases, you are absorbing conflict, distress, and at times trauma. In her research, a few patterns stood out to her. Not all client works affects attorneys the same way. General workload alone did not explain burnout. Instead, specific types of client interaction mattered more. Working with traumatized clients was more strongly associated with emotional exhaustion. And that makes sense to me. When I'm dealing with a client who is perhaps a victim of domestic violence, that emotional exhaustion goes home with me that day. I promise you that. She also found that moderate client loads, not the highest client loads, but moderate client loads were linked to depersonalization, which I found very interesting, and feeling detached from your clients. So when I look at my workload, which I do think is ridiculous and high, that's actually helped me not feel detached from my clients. So I found that to be good news. She also found in her research that burnout and depression are not the same. While many attorneys report signs of burnout, depression was not linked to or tied to client hours. It suggested that burnout may be more immediate, more work related, while depression is influenced by broader factors. Any of you who are part of the state bar, and you all are, you know how the state bar pushes us as attorneys to be careful of our mental health, to be cognizant of our mental health, to watch our mental health, and to get our help when we need it. She also found that it doesn't just help to work less, that there are factors that will assist in burnout. Those who regularly exercise, practice intentional self-care and self-compassion are less likely to burn out and recover quicker. She also found um, that personal accomplishment can be a counteract to burnout. And to me, that means finding something to do outside of work, whether that is, your pets or your children, or I love watching Daniel's posts about the work that he does at the Houston Food Bank and so many other things, so many other things. That's just the one that pops into my mind because that is what he's doing to help himself as a personal accomplishment, helping others. That is actually helping him and preventing burnout. And I just found her results to be so spot on. I asked her if I could share them with you today. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you for giving me a minute to go down that rabbit trail.
Yeah, no, I love that because it's not just the clients who can get stressed out, right? It's you as practitioners, and I would say that I have seen this pattern borne out in my own practice when I am dealing with a high conflict divorce or a traumatized client. I take some of that home with me, and I will also say that my lived experience says that intentional self-care helps a lot with that. So, absolutely, that was wonderful to add to the discussion.
Thanks.
So coming back to some of the strategies, a focus on goals. So when I engage with a new divorce client, just as Angela does, I spend some time defining their goals, and it does a few things. It helps me understand what matters to them, right? So when you're taking on a new client, yes, you want to know what the legal outcome they're looking for is, but you really want to get a clear understanding of what they want their life to look like when their case is over. Um, but the main reason I like to keep goals front and center is because it's kind of a rendezvous point. We can come back to that area when they start to get off track. I can ask, well, is this going to help us accomplish our goal? Is the path we're on going to get us to where we want to be? But be cautious here. I'm sure if we were in a live room and I asked for a show of hands and I said, how many of you who have had clients come in with completely unrealistic goals? Everybody would raise their hand and say, yes, I have clients with unrealistic goals. And Angela, I think you have a story to share on this topic on kind of helping clients craft achievable goals.
And I don't think my story is as good on the crafting side, but yes. So I think it is incredibly important to be realistic both with clients and with yourself. I think it goes to client satisfaction throughout the process if you are honest and realistic with them from the jump about what is probably going to happen in their case. I had a client a couple years ago who I had told her I couldn't get everything she wanted in the case for her. I told her that from day one. She wanted to make sure that the other parent only saw the children when she wanted him to, right? That's what she wanted. And I said, that's not how it's going to work. It's not how it's going to be. And I told her that consistently. After second mediation, she fired me and hired another attorney because I could not get her what she wanted. And I felt I had been clear about that. Months later, when their MSA was filed, it was finally signed, it was finally filed with the new attorney, and I looked through it just out of curiosity to see what happened. She got the same thing that I would have gotten for her. She got exactly what I told her she was going to get in the beginning. And the moral of that story is you are not going to be the right lawyer for every client, and that's okay. You don't have to be the right lawyer for every client. If you can guide them down the road to find those people that they will need to talk to get from where they are in a point of crisis to past that, that is okay if that's the only part of your job that you get to complete with them. In my opinion, it's always better to be honest with a client than lead them down a false path and give them hope and let them down. That doesn't help anybody.
Absolutely. And, helping them set achievable goals is part of that managing of expectations, right? So if they come to you and they have a completely outrageous goal, telling them out front that's probably not going to happen. It's going to save everybody a lot of pain. So we've talked a little bit about some strategies. Now let's talk tactics. And tactics are these very specific behaviors that you can engage in to help manage folks. And there's two primary ones I want to talk about. There's a tactic that I call acknowledge, redirect, and refocus. And then we can talk about focusing on facts. This is one of my very favorite forms of verbal judo. I use it all the time. So let's be clear. You are not their therapist. You are not their life coach. You are not their best friend, but they will try to put you in that chair. They will come into you all upset, wanting to talk about this thing. And it is healthy for them to be able to unload. It's not a great use of their money and your time and expertise. So, how do we get out of it without ignoring the emotional distress? So we're going to acknowledge the pain that they are expressing. We're going to acknowledge it verbally. After we've acknowledged the pain they're expressing, we are going to redirect them to the team member who can help them most, because it's probably not you. And then we're going to refocus the discussion back to the task at hand. And let's look at just some examples to make it a little bit more concrete.
Okay.
So I'm going to acknowledge that sounds stressful. That sounds stressful. It's just a statement of fact. Redirect. Maybe your therapist can help you work through that during your next session. Refocus. I want to make good use of our time together. Can we look at opening offer and make sure that we're happy with it? And guys, there's going to be some audience participation here in just a second. So get ready to start using your acknowledge, redirect, and refocus. Um, so here's some kind of real life examples. That's a really good question for your financial expert. Do you want me to send her a quick note? So you've acknowledged it's a good question. You've redirected, it's for the financial expert, and now you're refocusing by saying, I want to table this. I'm going to send her a quick note, and then we can move on to something else. Another example, I can see this is really bothering you. We've acknowledged. Unfortunately, tax questions are outside my expertise. I bet your CPA could help us with this one. Redirect. Then we refocus. Let's look at these temporary orders before we finish up today. And then the last example, and this is kind of the format you can use. I understand how upset you are, but this sounds like something that insert expert here is much better qualified to help with. We should really be focusing on insert topic here. Super simple technique. And now, guys, it's your turn to try it out. So here is our fact pattern. You have a client on the phone. They are upset because their soon-to-be ex-spouse is trashing them to the kids. And you've addressed this already because the spouse has been doing this for a while. Your goal for the call is to get them to schedule mediation for temporary orders. So who would like to take a run at acknowledging, redirecting, and refocusing? And you can pop that into the chat. I hope somebody pops something into the chat.
This is actually something that happens, I would say, almost on the daily in my practice. A spouse has done something that feels egregious. Maybe it isn't, but it feels egregious. And you feel for that client. You want them to feel better. You want them to not be going through it at all. But you really need them to focus on task at hand, which is getting them to mediation. In addition to the wonderful advice, Sarah, that you've given us, I think it's also helpful, not every time, but often to let the client know what it's costing. I appreciate that you called me. I appreciate you sent me 16 text messages today. Do you know that I bill every time I read one of those? And that's going to cost you a lot. Maybe we could try and put that into an email next time. So if you let the client know that, I do think they start looking then for best friend avenues, perhaps, someone who's a little less costly than their attorney to complain to.
Absolutely. I guess you guys are very shy. I don't see anyone popping into the chat with their audience participation, but I guarantee you this is an absolutely fantastic technique that you can use when a client has gotten off track. And again, it means you're not absorbing as much of their emotional stuff, and it does help you run a more efficient practice because you're not spending time being a therapist. So that's acknowledge, redirect, refocus. Another important technique is to focus on facts instead of fears. And Angela, I believe you had a little bit to share on that.
So when a client is not understanding, for example, the approach that you are coming into court with, it is sometimes helpful to give them more information than you typically would. And this depends on the client, of course. But I've got a client right now who she's very analytical. I believe she's a scientist, and she doesn't understand why I'm approaching trial the way that I am. So what I did is I found for her the statute, right? The statute that I'm using to prepare for trial, which shows, the burden of proof and all of the facts that need to be proven beyond, or I'm sorry, not beyond reasonable doubt. And I practice criminal law, clear and convincing evidence or preponderance of the evidence. And I sent that to her and I explained to her what each of those elements mean and how they impact our case and what piece of proof I felt was going to support that for us in court. And conversely, what spouse I felt would come up with and what I expect them to do in court. That helped calm her down immensely because now she can see I'm not just billing her for fun. I actually know what I'm doing. She came to me for a reason, and I'm able to show her this is what we have to do to get through court. Now she has a path to follow. Now every client's not going to be that interested, right? And so there are other clients, just maybe send them an article that is, in layman's terms, something simple that you didn't create, you don't have time, but you found it online, you read it, it's a good solid article. Send that to them. Also, you encourage your client to understand the why behind what you're doing without taking them through, a law school class, in just a simple email. Just I do keep a few emails handy, and not emails, that's the wrong word. I keep words handy to cut and paste into an email about certain issues, like what is mediation? What is discovery? Just to answer those simple questions so I don't have to recreate that every time.
Absolutely.
Sarah, I've got a note on preparing for success. Did we have a slide on that, or should I just
We
go
do.
forward?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay.
So, in addition to focusing on facts, you've got to control what you can. And then, as Angela said, offer options. A lot of times it feels like you don't have a choice in the legal system. You can feel very much out of control. So, offering your clients a few options to choose from can really help them take some of that power back and soothe some of that, the concerns that they're having. So let's talk a little bit about how we can finish strong. And then, Angela, I believe you've got a little bit on that for us, right?
I do. When you are nearing the end of your case, let's say you've reached agreement at mediation. I think it's important for the client to understand that reaching agreement doesn't mean the case is done. There's still a lot of paperwork to do after agreement is reached at mediation. So, here on this slide, you've got do they understand? Can they implement? Do they know the next steps? At a minimum for a divorce, you've got the agreed final decree, you've got the ancillary documents that the court wants you to file, which is different in every court. And you may or may not have a qualified domestic relations order that needs to be completed. You've got deeds perhaps that need to be created. The client needs to know that all of those need to be done next. And I try and also give them a timeline so that they know that, this probably is going to take a month. And depending on how slow the other side is, it might take 2 months, just to give them some idea so they're not wondering, what happened? Am I divorced? Because it does take a minute. And again, I always try and give my clients this is what we have to do next in the email that I send to them so that they know what's coming next and they can kind of prepare for that.
Absolutely. So, a part of my practice is helping people actually implement their divorce decrees. And again, it's something I see often. They'll come to me and they'll say, well, I'm divorced, now what? And we've got 1 to 3 quadros to process. We've got accounts to retitle and transfer. So it's clear that not everyone is doing the legwork of saying, here's what comes next. But I will tell you, it's going to help set your clients up for success. And it's going to be fewer emails from them going, where's my money? What happens now? So a lot of this is an ounce of prevention, pound a cure kind of thing. Um, so why bother? Why bother, right? The clients are still going to come to you. You're still going to make money as an attorney. You're going to build a practice. So there's a few things. Implementing these steps. It's going to be less stressful for you. Angela talked about the study. Has the study been published yet, or are these preliminary results?
Preliminary results, and she's pulling
Yeah.
together her doctoral thesis.
So Angela shared with us the results of that doctoral thesis, pointing out that when you are absorbing a lot of highly charged emotions from your clients, it's stressful for you and it's going to affect the quality of your work. So if you can use these techniques to help soothe some of that emotional volatility, that's going to help you. And you're going to run a more efficient practice because instead of spending time playing therapist, you're to actually spend time practicing law, which is what you went to school for so many years. You're also likely to get better outcomes. And this should be intuitive, but I'll say it out loud. When somebody isn't thinking clearly, they don't make good decisions. When somebody is too full of hot emotions, they're not going to make the best decisions and you're not going to get the best outcomes. So having a client that is, well taken care of, is having their emotions addressed in a healthy manner, they're gonna tend to make better decisions. You get better outcomes. And that means you have happier clients. And what do happy clients do, Angela?
They tell other people about their
They
experience.
do. Yeah. Yeah. And I think you got some advice along these lines right out of law school, didn't you?
I did. I hadn't been out of law school more than a year, and I was thinking about spending money on a Yellow Pages ad. Not the online one. No, no, the actual physical copy one. You all are probably too young to even remember that. And I had an older seasoned attorney say to me, "You don't want those clients. You don't want the clients that would come to you from a Yellow Pages ad. You want the clients who are going to come to you because their friends and neighbors told them to come to you." And I did not get the Yellow Pages ad. I focused on solid client work, and it has been very true. I've been very fortunate that the only advertising I've ever had to do is my website, and which is in dire need of work. If any of you go check that out, just it needs work. I am aware. But it has been really wonderful. The word of mouth clients have just snowballed, and I get some of the dearest people as clients because they came from dear people who were dear to me, and I'm happy to help them.
Yeah, and I'll second that. The best clients that work with me are the ones that were referred to me by other people who have worked with me. Not to say that I don't love the leads that I get off my website, but if you could have a whole book of business that's built solely on referrals, you're going to be a generally happier practitioner, I would think. So it's good for the clients, it's good for you, and it's good for business to implement these techniques. So we do have some time. You all have been very, very quiet. I am curious to know if anyone has questions. So if you have questions, please pop those in the chat. I am going to throw up Angela's contact details if you want to screen
Thank you,
cap
Sarah.
that. I'm sorry?
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah. So there's Angela's contact details. If you want to screen cap, I'll leave that up for another 5-ish seconds or so. And then if you would like to know where to find me, I also have a website. There's the phone number, email address, and if you want to follow me on social media, I do post actively there. I will make one shameless plug for those of you who are family law practitioners. I do write a blog. It's called Graceful Exits. It is intended to be client facing, but there's a lot of really great information for attorneys, whether you're a new practitioner or you've been doing this for years. And it's also stuff that you can share with your clients. That's available for free on my website. If you want to get the new publications every month when they come out, just shoot me an email and say, "Hey, Sarah, please add me to your list." I will not otherwise pester you, and I don't ever sell your information. The goal behind the blog is to just spread good knowledge.
And if I can just come in behind that and say, I love your blog articles. I love them. And I always read them with an eye towards, okay, which client needs this information right now? And I save them, I forward them on as the questions come in because they're so well written and so thoughtful, Sarah. So no, they're really good. Anybody out there who wants to go check them out and read them, please do. They're worth the read.
Thank you so much for that, Angela. I really appreciate that. I'm glad it's still relevant because I've been doing that blog maybe since 2021.
It is.
And eventually you do kind of run out of things to talk about.
But when I
Um,
get it, even if it's something that I may have seen before, I always think of a new client who needs that information.
Wonderful, wonderful. Um, I have not seen any questions pop into the chat, although there appears to be some sort of notification here. I don't Zoom a lot, y'all. Oh, Q&A. There's
Yep.
something in the Q&A. One of the attendees would like to know if there is a course number for the CLE. Daniel, do you have
Oh,
that?
Yes, 12:45. I will put that in the chat. Excellent question. Yeah, everybody just hang out, and we do that for accreditation purposes, just to make sure. So we were required to speak for at least 45 minutes. It's not us being difficult. It's just MCLE compliance because our CLEs do get audited. So we want to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's on that.
I think I have one more story. I think I have a story that
Oh,
I missed as we were going through.
I would
This
love to
was
hear it.
along the lines of what resources can you search out and source for your clients? But there are resources that your clients just need to find on their own, right? So, some of those things might be a therapist for your client, encourage them to talk to friends and coworkers, join a divorce support group, even religious groups. If your client is religious oriented and would feel comfortable with a religious group, encourage them to do that. I think oftentimes clients are embarrassed because divorce feels like failure, and in some ways it is. You've had a marriage, that marriage failed. Now you've got to do something else, right? So it is a failure. But I would encourage them to tell others about it because that instantly expands their support group. And from my own experience, I went through my first divorce, my second semester of law school. And you all know how stressful that was. You all were there. It was horrible. And I hid that from my fellow students for probably 3 months. I was so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell anybody. And it came out one day. One of my fellow students was asking me to do something. I was on a committee and I just lost it. I snapped at him. I said, "I'm going through divorce. Back off." And instantly, all 70 of my classmates were on my side and supportive, and I didn't have to hide it anymore, which meant that stress was gone. So encourage people that it's not a death sentence. It does not, ban them from being happy for life or make them a bad person. It's just a divorce. It's a situation. There's a way out of that situation. You move on to something better.
Absolutely. I remember going through my divorce, and I remember how incredibly stressful it was. And I don't think I would have gotten through it if I didn't have a really strong support network. So definitely encouraging your clients to seek out support from friends, from family, from the church where they may attend, from support groups, from other professionals who, can solve those problems. Um, and Angela will say the one thing you shouldn't encourage them to do is to go onto Facebook and start posting. Facebook is
Yeah,
not a good place for your
no.
emotional dumping, because I'm pretty sure
Can
that
and will
stuff
be
could
used
be
against you in court later.
exactly.
I even have that clause in my contract. The clients have to stop posting immediately, all platforms.
Yes, stay
So,
off the Facebook. Let's see. I'm just reading a quick question here. So Greg says, "Thank you, Daniel, for keeping us online for a few more minutes. Lucy was a little concerned, but all should be well. And I really liked Sarah's pointers for how to handle a stressed client. Glad that was helpful. That should come in handy for any personal interactions, not just lawyer clients." Yeah,
uh,
actually, you can use the acknowledge, redirect, refocus verbal judo on your friends and family too. So and I will admit that I have done that. I have absolutely verbally judoed people in my personal life because I don't have the gas in the tank because I've been verbally judoing clients all day. So, I will tell you, when I went to business school, the best class I ever took was managing people in organizations, not necessarily because it taught me how to manage in a business setting. It taught me how to manage the people in my life. And so that's where some of this comes from. Some of this comes from that class, and just one of the things you can do if you in your oodles and scads of spare time is you can kind of become a student of humans. Understanding humans and all of the biases and things that make our little brains tick will help you in implementing these techniques, and it'll just make you an overall better lawyer, which is a little unfair.
yeah,
You should just be able to be an expert in the law and be done with it. But no, you have to be an expert in the law and you have to understand people, because unfortunately, people are the ones who pay your bills and interact with the law alongside you.
that's good advice, Sarah.
Yeah. Um, I do not see any additional questions. And Daniel, have we met the requirement for time?
We have, so I just put the MCLE number into the chat. I do actually have two questions though, if y'all would be willing to indulge us until maybe 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the easier question for discussion. So this is really, it's from a litigation background, just since I'm a litigator, I talk to litigators, I just have a better idea kind of what the junior lawyers I oversee, the more senior lawyers, what they've kind of dealt with throughout their career. So I always love getting advice on this. As a litigator, we want to, whenever we get a good result, we can see the smile on our client's face, whether it's an individual or the CFO of Fortune 500 company. When they're sitting there at trial with us, we can see whether they're happy or not. So we delight in being able to give good results to them, whether that's even just a mediation. We get them the deal that we told them. Here's what the facts are, here's what the evidence is, here's what I think is going to happen. So we want to take delight in the wins. By the opposite side of the coin, we don't really want to share too much in the disappointments, the unhappiness, especially if maybe they have unrealistic expectations, or just say a judge unfairly rules against based on what Texas law is. Is there any advice that y'all would have based on how to avoid burnout, that you still stay plugged in on the wins, and you can still channel that and feel good about the win side of the column, but not to walk out of a hearing and just your shoulders drop, and people have a variety of different ways of dealing with whatever bad result bad day in court is going to be.
Yeah.
Is there a way to separate those two from what you've seen and what you would recommend?
Oh,
Angela, that's a
wow.
great question for you.
That is really, really tough because when I do have a horrible result in court, one that maybe I didn't even see coming. I didn't expect that it would go that badly south. That's a gut punch, right? And you question all of your decisions leading up to that point. Why did I go to law school? Why did I get into family law? Why did I pick this client, right? It's a gut punch. I've only had that 2 or 3 times in my career, but it really makes you question everything. So how do you come back after one of those gut punches? For me, it's diving right back into the next case. Who can I help? Who needs my help? Well, okay, and let's be honest, I'm probably spending a day with my head under the covers saying, "Oh, what happened?" But once I get through that, who can I help? Who needs my help right now, and how can I get in there right now to fix that? And I agree with you. When you win and things went exactly how you thought they were going to go, and that is a high, that is a beautiful thing. And to go out and celebrate those, we should be able to come up with a way to offset those lows. Daniel, I'm going to work on that for the next time we give this presentation. And for my own personal sanity, I'm going to work on how to do that. Interesting. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
So yeah, so I'm usually not, obviously I'm not going into court and litigating because that's not the role that I play in cases, but there are times when I'll have a client who does not get the result they wanted at mediation. The advantage I have here is that I'm a little bit more removed from the situation. I'm often not in the room. But I find again, and this is a theme in my practice, expectations management is so important. So when I am preparing a client for mediation, I make it very clear to them what I think is achievable and what I think is like, if we get it, we should be very, very happy, right? Because if they go in knowing that they're probably not going to be super thrilled with the deal they get, because no one ever walks away from mediation getting everything they wanted, never
Right.
happens. And so in those situations, I find managing their expectations and mine can really help when you don't get the result you wanted.
Mm.
Now, personally, like I do sometimes quote unquote lose, right? Maybe I'm trying to sign a new client and they choose to go a different direction. Sometimes you just have to feel your feelings of disappointment. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to suck a little bit. But sometimes you just have to feel disappointed. Once you're done feeling disappointed, you can then go on and do other things that are much more positive. So, like Angela said, jumping into the next thing. What's the next client I'm going to try to bring on board? What's the next thing I'm going to solve? So I like manage expectations, feel your feelings, and then move on to the next positive activity.
Good advice. Feel your feelings. We're encouraging clients to feel theirs. We're acknowledging them. Feel your own feelings. It's okay.
Even if it kind of is uncomfortable, which it often is.
It often.
Daniel, I think you had one more question.
Yes, but just to put the cherry on top of that, I appreciate all your thoughts on that. I think all three of us are pretty compassionate people, so it's dealing with people in crisis, we do often kind of absorb some of the emotions that are going on around us.
Very much so.
So that I mean, it's something for us to keep thinking about how we can do better and just keep giving advice, seeing what works, what doesn't. But yeah, I love that discussion. Thank you all for your thoughts on that. 6 years or so when we do this again, we'll see where we all are at that point and what new stuff we got. Okay, so the other question, uh, so as broad as possible, it's basically when you were dealing with somebody who has, yeah, so and just for purpose of the question, assume it's not somebody who just walked into your office. It's somebody, it's a client you've been dealing with for a while. You have seen them in one capacity of like a strong, put together person who understands what is going on. You have capably educated them what to expect. And then, you're at trial, they're on the stand, they get an easy softball question and they just break down, tears, waterworks, the whole thing. Totally unexpected to you. You've had a long-term relationship with them. They knew what to expect. The actual question they just got asked is not a thing that really should have upset a completely altogether with it type of person. Say for Sarah, if that happened in your office, somebody you dealt with for 3 to 4 years, just remove the jury and the judge from all of that. Are there any resources that y'all have found over the years to, we're not like trying to get anybody a PhD in therapy, but this is more of kind of like a first aid survival kit. Uh,
Hmm.
when just something radically unexpected like that happens, have you all found, a good resource for you to draw on to, potentially the judo method? Anything like that, or any kind of reading you would recommend, or blogs,
Mm.
books, anything like that? Just because, I mean, the unexpected happens.
Yeah.
I know Angela and I have seen this in pro bono cases more than anything else, and that's a separate kind of situation than would be, a Fortune 500 senior vice president who breaks down for no reason.
So in a case where obviously I'm not going to have anyone testifying on the stand, but if I'm in a work session with someone and they absolutely lose it, seemingly at the drop of a hat, I think that's the signal that you just need to pause what you're doing for the day. Really, it's just nothing is important enough for someone to be so stressed out that they're breaking down. Now, I will tell you, there's almost always a sign. Okay, there's almost always a sign that they're reaching their emotional limits. So some of this is a little bit of developing your emotional IQ, your EQ, and really looking at body language, looking at tone of voice, looking for anything that's a little bit different. Now, I'm a little bit more attuned, mostly because I spend a lot of time with animals. Animals don't speak English. They cannot tell us what's going on. So watching body language is a little bit second nature for me. But if I've missed the signs and somebody has just lost it, you got to press pause. You just have to press pause. And the one thing you don't want to do is slide that box of tissues across the table and just look at them. That is going to make them feel worse. So what you can say is, hey, I see you're clearly having a hard time. I get it. These are if you need them. Okay. Do you need a few moments to collect yourself? I can leave the room and give you a couple of minutes if you need that. And then if they do, then I'll give them a few minutes because people don't like to cry in front of other people. If they don't, I'll say, well, let's just take a few breaths. Okay. And once they've calmed down, I will give them the option to either continue on with the meeting or we can reconvene later. So when somebody has reached their emotional breaking point, you've got to hit pause and you have to attend to that. It is an emotional emergency at that point.
So I would love to be able to hit pause. In the
Yes.
trial setting, that's not an option, right? So
Can't do it
make
in
a
court.
deep thought that tears are expected in family court. If I have a client who's not crying in family court, that is an unusual day. So the box of tissues is right there, and it always gets slid over in the court setting. You've got your judge, your court reporter, your bailiff. The questions are flying. There's not a moment to take a breath. But it depends on the depth of the breakdown. If it's some tears over what is happening, what is going on, clients usually will move past that. And they do that because you have already, as the attorney, you've already gone through Q&A with them. They know these are the tough questions that are coming. They know these are the questions that opposing counsel is probably going to ask you. And so they've got some idea of how horrible it's going to be. But I always remind clients, whatever you think court's going to be, it's going to be worse. It is stressful. It is exhausting. And it's not a whole lot better for attorneys. Those of us who do this, we know we go home exhausted too. But the moment I can take a break, I'll ask the court for 5 minutes, get the client out into, the hallway, the restroom. Probably they've got some family there with them, especially in a family law setting. Usually got grandparents or, someone is there. Get them to get a hug, get them to get a deep breath, get a glass of water. That's the triage. As far as getting them some real help, oh, Daniel, I think at that point I would just say, that really sucked. Make sure you talk about that with your therapist next time you see them. And when are you seeing them, by the way? So they can really think about, oh yeah, I do need to get some of this talked out and I need to do it soon.
I
I
will
wish there was a
find that,
better plan. I wish there was a better
yeah,
thing. I wish I had a magic wand to make them feel better in the moment, but
I do find that compassionately acknowledging that they are distressed and the reaction they're having is completely normal is one of the best things you can do because anger, grief, fear are very isolating emotions. And so if they're having a large emotional reaction and you aren't able to acknowledge it with compassion, that just makes them feel more isolated. So if you do nothing else, acknowledge that the reaction they're having is normal and that they are having big emotions. And then if you can, hit that pause button to give them a minute to get put back together.
and I will often do that in Q&A. When a client is sobbing on the witness stand, can you tell the judge why you're crying right now? And give the judge some idea about what's behind the emotion. But again, those are things that are allowed in family law that I don't think happen in the corporate world at all. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the crying thing still happens on the stand, but in terms of the judge wanting to know why they're crying, probably
Probably.
less relevant in most cases. Um, but no, those were fantastic thoughts. Plenty different options and methods. We've all had a client that has a panic attack or something. So that's why I always have sour candy somewhere near me. There's a lot of research that sour candy like short circuits the
What?
anxiety. Yeah,
Oh,
this is very interesting research that's out there.
I've learned two things today. I've learned verbal judo, which I'm taking, Sarah. I'm going to use that.
You can use
And
that.
sour candy. Wow.
That's right. So, like keep a bag of those sour warheads. That tends to be the best thing. Somebody who's just having a panic attack, get them one of them. As long as they're not allergic to it or any those kind of problems. And it short circuits the neural processes that are going on with anxiety. That it like immediately calms the heart rate down. It's incredible. And there actually is legitimate research. This is not like research funded by the Warheads Candy Company. So that's
That's
something that I
fantastic.
love because y'all shared tips and tricks for the last hour. So I really brought something hopefully slightly useful to this conversation.
That is fantastic. And my assistant's here with us. I hope he's making a note to go and get some sour candy for us.
Go place the order on Amazon right now. Well, so we are at 1 o'clock. So I want to thank everybody that joined us as a participant today. We really do appreciate y'all supporting the HYLF CLE committee and all the programs that we put on. We hope that you'll enjoy the topics and the speakers. This was an incredible panel that we put together today. I cannot thank Angela and Sarah enough for generously volunteering their time and their expertise. These are two incredible people, two of my favorites in Houston. You all have always been so generous to both the HYLA before I aged out of HYLA and the HYLIF. Now that I'm in the older, more experienced lawyer group of HYLIF. So yeah, any closing thoughts that y'all would like to give before we turn the recording off?
I just want to say, anyone has any questions, please reach out. Don't hesitate. As a young lawyer, I was, you're nervous to let someone know you don't know something. Just reach out. I'm not going to tell anybody. If you ask me a question, I'm not going to turn around and say, so and so asked me this question. Can you believe it? No. What I'm going to do is give you the information that you need to then go on and complete your practice. And that's what lawyers did through me throughout my career. And I am so grateful for that. So please reach out anytime.
The only thing I would leave you with is that some of these techniques take a little bit of time to perfect. It's going to take time to adjust your mindset. It's going to take time to adjust your approach. So have compassion, not just for your clients, but for yourself as you develop these new habits. I will tell you, it has taken me, oh, let's call it 15 years to get good at this. So continue to make incremental improvements every day, and eventually you'll realize, wow, I'm getting really good at this verbal judo and all of these other techniques that I learned.
Awesome. Well, I thank you again and again. This was a fantastic presentation. We really do appreciate y'all joining us. Hopefully, all the participants were able to screenshot emails, websites, all of that. Highly recommend y'all check out the blog from Sarah that we talked about. It is a fantastic resource. Uh, a number of the attendees probably take pro bono family law cases from Houston Volunteer Lawyers or Lone Star Legal Aid. Even if it's your first one that you're kind of delving into, it's a great resource to understand some of the kind of issues that are going on in family law. If
Yeah.
it's a pro bono case, the more kind of complex quadro type situations are probably not going on, but it's still just a helpful resource. Um, so yeah, I guess that's probably it. Hopefully we see you all again May 20th. I think that is the last CLE that we have coming out of this committee for the bar year. And then we're looking forward to the new bar year starting. So thank you. Hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you,
Bye,
Daniel.
everybody.
Thank you, Sarah.